The illusion of freedom and the paradox of control. You may think that you're in control of your life. You make decisions, you set goals, and you believe that your thoughts and actions are a result of your own free will. But here's the terrifying truth. You're not in control. Not of your thoughts, not of your choices, not of your future. And in fact, most of what you think are your choices have already been shaped for you before you even had a chance to consciously decide. And what's worse, the most disturbing part of this realization is that despite all of this, you still feel free. This freedom, this sense of autonomy, is a carefully crafted illusion. In reality, you're not driving the car of your life. You're simply a passenger navigating a system that was set in motion long before you ever arrived. The roads, the directions, the rules, these were all established long before you were born. Every decision you think you've made, every turn you believe you've taken, was already predetermined by the system you're part of. From the day you were born, the trajectory of your life was mapped out for you, shaped by societal expectations, family history, education, and the ingrained structures that were built long before you were even aware. And yet, even knowing this, you continue to feel the illusion of freedom. But here's the truth. Control doesn't need violence. It doesn't need brute force or chains. Control only needs one thing: understanding. Understanding how the human mind works. Understanding how people make decisions, how they respond to fear, how they act in their own self-interest. The terrifying reality is that the people who control you don't need to force you into submission. They simply need to understand how your mind works. And they do, better than you do. Niccolò Machiavelli, often considered the father of modern political theory, didn't write his works to comfort you. He didn't care about your values, your beliefs, or your sense of morality. He didn't ask how life should be. Instead, he described life as it actually is. Machiavelli didn't offer idealistic dreams or utopian visions. He offered a map of the human condition. And when he did this, when he dared to pull back the curtain and reveal how power truly operates, society branded him a devil. Why? Because he dared to speak one brutal truth, that control doesn't require violence. It only requires understanding. Understanding how the human mind operates, how people think, act, and respond to fear, is the real source of power. And Machiavelli had a deep understanding of this. In fact, he understood it better than the minds that think they are in control. This video isn't here to teach you how to manipulate others. It's here to protect you from those who have already figured out how to manipulate you. It's here to show you how your thoughts, your choices, and even your desires have been shaped by forces you're not fully aware of. This video is a map of the human psyche, a map that Machiavelli left behind for those brave enough to stay awake in a world built on silent lies. Are you ready to see the truth? Because what's coming next won't be easy to hear. But if you're strong enough to face it, it might just change the way you see everything forever. We are told that people are inherently good. We are taught that we are rational beings, driven by logic and guided by a moral compass. We believe that deep down, everyone means well, that humanity is capable of acting with conscience. But what if that isn't true? What if people are not driven by principles, but by something much more primal, much more self-serving? What if the very foundation of human behavior is not reason or morality, but fear and self-interest? Machiavelli didn't write these truths because he hated people. He didn't seek to condemn humanity or to paint a cynical picture of the world. He simply observed human nature for what it is. And what he saw was a world where people act not out of noble ideals, but out of the need to survive, to gain power, to avoid fear, and to fulfill their own desires. In other words, he saw that people are, at their core, driven by fear and self-interest. And when the stakes are high enough, when survival is on the line, people will abandon their principles in a heartbeat. You want to believe that your friends would stand by you in a crisis. You want to believe that loyalty and friendship are values that will endure, no matter the cost. But when that moment comes, when you need them most, you may find yourself standing alone. You want to believe that the crowd will fight for justice, that they will stand up for what is right. But when the price of standing up becomes too high, when the danger becomes too great, they will quickly shift their position, turn their backs, and seek comfort wherever they can find it. This isn't a condemnation of humanity. This is simply an observation of the human condition. People are not evil. They are human. They are predictable. And that is precisely what Machiavelli understood better than anyone else. He understood that morality, in many ways, is just theater. The appearance of goodness, the public performance of virtue, matters more than actual goodness. People don't judge you based on your intentions. They judge you based on your outcome. And in this world, the outcome is everything. Think about it. The person who looks loyal, who acts virtuous in public, who speaks with conviction, who seems competent and capable, this person is often praised, even if, behind the scenes, they are manipulating, lying, or cheating. They are rewarded for their performance, not for the truth. On the other hand, the one who works quietly, who produces results but refuses to play the game, this person is often dismissed, forgotten, or overlooked. They're not part of the performance, and therefore, they are ignored. This is the harsh reality that Machiavelli recognized. People judge you by your appearance, by the persona you project, not by the truth of who you are. In this world, the appearance of loyalty, competence, and virtue often matters more than actual loyalty, competence, or virtue. This is why Machiavelli's insights are so powerful. They don't just reveal the way people should behave, they reveal the way people actually behave when no one is watching. And that's where Machiavelli's genius lies. He didn't try to change human nature. He accepted it for what it was. And in doing so, he was able to navigate the complex web of human behavior in a way that others could not. He didn't waste time trying to change people. He simply predicted how they would act and built strategies that worked with human nature, not against it. But here's the truth. The game has not changed. Nothing has really changed. Politicians still sell hope while hiding their compromises. Business leaders still praise teamwork but reward those who take credit. Lovers still make promises they don't intend to keep. And the public continues to follow the ones who perform the best, not necessarily the ones who do the best. If you're uncomfortable with this, if this truth shakes you, good. That means you're finally starting to see clearly. It means you're waking up to the reality of the world around you. It's a harsh awakening, but it's necessary if you're going to navigate the world with clarity and understanding. Machiavelli was not trying to create cynicism. He was trying to create awareness. He wanted you to understand how people really act, not how you hope they will. Because the sooner you understand this truth, the sooner you stop expecting consistency from the inconsistent, loyalty from the opportunistic, and truth from those who are simply playing the game. And when you can see the game clearly, you can play it. But first, you must wake up. This is the start of the journey. A journey that may be uncomfortable, but is absolutely essential. In Part 2, we'll dive deeper into how to navigate the world of manipulation and power, based on the raw insights Machiavelli offered. We'll uncover the tools used to influence, deceive, and maintain control, and learn how to protect yourself from those who use these tools against you. Navigating the jungle of human behavior and the architecture of power, Machiavelli understood something fundamental about the human condition that most people overlook. That human beings are not rational creatures driven by principles, but are driven by fear, self-interest, and survival instincts. People don't act based on what is morally right. They act based on what benefits them in the moment. Morality, when it's convenient, can serve their interests. But when the stakes are high, when survival is on the line, people will abandon their principles without a second thought. This is the reality that most philosophers and thinkers failed to fully grasp. The world doesn't operate according to the ideals we want to believe in. It operates according to the raw, unspoken forces that drive human behavior. Machiavelli was not telling us something new or revolutionary. He was simply shedding light on the uncomfortable truths that have always been there, hidden in plain sight. He was able to look past the facade of morality, law, and culture, and see the underlying currents of fear and self-interest that shape every action, every decision, every moment of human interaction. If you are to understand how power really works in the world, you must first understand that most people act out of self-interest. They seek safety, comfort, and control. They are driven by the fear of losing what they have, or the fear of failing in their own survival. Machiavelli taught us that to understand human nature is to understand how to influence and control it. People are not motivated by truth. They are motivated by what benefits them, and in order to gain influence over them, you must learn to predict their behavior, to understand what makes them tick. This is where the art of power comes in. Once you understand the motivations of others, you can navigate the human jungle with eyes wide open. You no longer need to rely on idealistic notions of fairness or justice to guide your actions. Instead, you learn to understand the landscape of human behavior, recognizing when others are acting out of fear, self-interest, or desperation. With this understanding, you can make better decisions, not based on what you wish people would do, but based on what they are actually capable of doing. Let's look at an example of how Machiavelli's insights have shaped the world. In politics, the appearance of strength is often more important than actual strength. Politicians who project power and confidence are often more successful than those who are actually capable of delivering meaningful change. In this arena, it's not about having the best ideas or the most moral approach. It's about how you present yourself to the world, how you manage your image, and how you manipulate the perceptions of others. The key to power, then, is not necessarily in action, but in perception. Machiavelli knew that the best way to maintain control was to shape how people see you. He didn't suggest that rulers be cruel or manipulative just for the sake of it. He advocated for a careful balance, one where you do what is necessary to maintain power and stability, but always in a way that ensures people still view you as a legitimate authority. The goal is not to create chaos, but to predict the behavior of others and control the narrative. This is where the concept of strategic generosity comes in. When you give in a way that builds loyalty and dependency. You don't give because you feel it's the right thing to do. You give because you know it will secure your position of power. By giving people what they want, you gain their trust. But it's not just about giving. It's about ensuring that the people you give to feel like they owe you. Generosity becomes a tool of influence, a way to bind others to you. Machiavelli understood that nothing is given without a purpose. Every gesture, every action must be calculated to ensure that you maintain your position. This doesn't mean being heartless or cruel, but it does mean being strategic. You must give in such a way that it strengthens your position, reinforces your influence, and keeps others dependent on you. When you can make others feel that they owe you something, you gain the power to control the direction of the relationship. Another key insight from Machiavelli is the concept of calculated mercy. He understood that to maintain control, you must never show weakness, but you must also know when to show mercy. A ruler who is too harsh risks rebellion, but a ruler who is too lenient risks losing respect. The key is to strike the right balance. Show mercy, but only when it serves your purpose. Don't let an enemy or a rival go unpunished unless it's in your best interest. This is where strategic alliances come into play. Machiavelli recognized that power doesn't come from isolation. It comes from the ability to form alliances, to connect with others who can help you achieve your goals. But these alliances must be carefully curated. You must always ensure that you are in a position of strength, that the people around you rely on you for something they cannot get anywhere else. The key to building alliances is to be the one from whom all favors flow. When people rely on you, you gain leverage, and leverage equals power. So far, we've seen how Machiavelli's insights into human nature and power have shaped the modern world. But there is one final aspect that is often overlooked: predictive consistency. This is the idea that once you build a reputation for being consistent, for always delivering on your promises, people will begin to follow you not because they have to, but because they believe in the inevitability of your leadership. People don't follow leaders who are perfect. They follow leaders who are consistent. If you can predictably deliver on your promises, if you can consistently meet the needs of those who follow you, you create a sense of inevitability. People will begin to trust you, not because you are the best at what you do, but because they know that you will always act in their best interest. And once they trust you, you have them. They will follow you, they will serve you, and they will help you achieve your goals. Machiavelli's genius was not in teaching us how to manipulate people, but in teaching us how to navigate the complexities of human behavior. He didn't try to change human nature. He simply recognized it for what it was and showed us how to work with it. The principles he laid out are not just for politicians or rulers. They are for anyone who wants to understand how power works and how to use it to their advantage. Understanding human behavior is the first step in gaining control over your life and your future. The art of influence perception, and strategic control in modern times. In the first two parts, we explored Machiavelli's understanding of power and human nature. We discussed how he recognized that people, at their core, are driven by fear and self-interest, not reason or morality. But how does this knowledge translate into the modern world? How do the tactics and strategies Machiavelli described apply to today's complex, fast-paced, and seemingly free society? The truth is, these strategies are still at play today, perhaps more subtly and invisibly than ever before. The mechanisms of control, manipulation, and influence that Machiavelli wrote about have evolved, but the principles behind them remain unchanged. In this part, we'll examine how these age-old strategies manifest in the modern world, in everything from politics to business to personal relationships. But more importantly, we'll explore how you can use these insights not just to understand the forces at work around you, but also to protect yourself from being manipulated. 1. The architecture of power, perception, image, and control. Machiavelli's brilliance lay not in his ability to control people with force, but in his understanding that power is most effective when it operates through perception. In the modern world, this has never been truer. The most influential people in the world today are often those who understand the power of image, how to control how they are perceived by others. These are not necessarily the most competent, the most qualified, or the most ethical, but they know how to project an image of strength, competence, and integrity, and it is this image that makes them powerful. In today's world, image is currency. The perception you create through your actions, words, and even your silence holds more weight than your actual abilities. In politics, for example, a leader doesn't need to be the best at governing. They just need to appear as though they are. A charismatic speaker, a person who understands how to manipulate public opinion, can hold more power than someone with actual experience or insight into the matters at hand. The image of leadership becomes more important than the substance of leadership itself. This is the first lesson to take from Machiavelli. Control perception. It's not enough to be competent, good, or honest. You need to be seen as competent, good, and honest. The public, the people you interact with, do not always care about the truth behind the facade. They care about how things appear, and the better you are at shaping that appearance, the more power you have. 2. Fear as a tool of control. One of Machiavelli's most famous and controversial teachings is that fear is a more reliable tool for maintaining power than love. He didn't say that fear should replace love, but that when it comes to power dynamics, fear creates stability in ways that affection and loyalty cannot. Fear is an instinct. It doesn't require reasoning, it doesn't ask for fairness, and it doesn't need an explanation. Fear simply obeys. In modern life, fear still plays a massive role in how we behave, how we interact with authority, and how we manage our relationships. In the workplace, in political structures, in personal relationships, we are often controlled by the subtle fear of losing something important: our job, our social status, our position in a group, or the support of others. Fear of losing what we value can make us act in ways we otherwise wouldn't. Take a leader who rules through fear. While this might seem harsh or even cruel, the leader's power is maintained as long as that fear is consistent. It doesn't need to be violent. It doesn't need to be oppressive. Fear can be as subtle as a glance, a change in tone, or an unspoken consequence that looms over someone's actions. Fear works best when it is not loud or overt. It works best when it is consistent. Think about the corporate world. How many times have employees stayed silent or avoided voicing their opinion? Not because they are afraid of physical violence, but because they fear the consequences of speaking out. They fear losing their job, being passed over for promotions, or becoming the target of whispers and gossip. The subtle looming fear of these consequences controls their actions more than any overt threat. Fear can also be used strategically in relationships. Have you ever noticed that the person who can walk away, the one who is not afraid to leave, often holds the most power in the relationship? They don't need to be cruel. They simply need to establish the possibility of absence, the fear of loss. When someone fears losing you, they will often respect your boundaries, value your presence, and work to keep you around. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding that fear is a primal force that operates in the background of human behavior. 3. The power of silence, strategic withdrawal. One of the most profound, yet often overlooked strategies Machiavelli recommended was the use of silence. In a world that's constantly filled with noise, endless opinions, arguments, debates, social media posts, and public commentary, silence is an incredibly powerful tool. And ironically, it's one that most people fail to recognize as a tool for influence and control. Machiavelli himself understood that silence is often more effective than words. The wise ruler, according to Machiavelli, never spoke unless it was absolutely necessary. By being selectively silent, you hold a tremendous amount of power. Your silence forces others to question your intentions. It forces them to fill in the gaps. It forces them to make assumptions. And those assumptions can work in your favor, whether they are positive or negative. In modern life, the ability to remain silent, especially in moments of tension or conflict, can be the most powerful form of control. Whether in the workplace, in a negotiation, or in a personal relationship, silence allows you to control the narrative without saying a word. When others are speaking, when they are revealing their plans, their fears, their desires, you are learning. You are calculating. And when the time comes, you can respond with precision, using the information you've gained from their words, their actions, and their behavior. When you remain silent, you don't just withhold information. You also signal that you are not desperate for attention, approval, or validation. This gives you power because others will begin to wonder what you know that they don't. They will start to view you as someone who is not easily swayed, someone who cannot be manipulated. And that alone will make them approach you with caution and respect. 4. Manipulating perception, the art of creating your own narrative. In the modern world, we are constantly told that perception is everything. Politicians, business leaders, and influencers understand this better than anyone. They know that shaping the narrative, creating an image, and managing public perception is often more important than the actual truth. A politician who crafts the right image, who speaks in sound bites that appeal to the masses, who manages their public persona with care, can often win over voters even if they do not have the policies or qualifications to back it up. This is where the concept of strategic generosity and calculated mercy comes into play. By selectively giving, by selectively being kind or generous, you shape the narrative of who you are. But these acts are not just out of goodwill, they are out of necessity. You give not because you want to, but because it strengthens your position. You shape the story of who you are in the eyes of others, and that story becomes the lens through which all your future actions are viewed. In personal relationships, this can look like making an effort to appear selfless or to be a good partner, when in reality, it is about setting up expectations and boundaries that allow you to have the upper hand. A partner who gives endlessly, expecting love in return, often ends up used. But the partner who knows when to walk away, who controls the space in the relationship, often holds the true power. Conclusion: the modern Machiavellian seeing through the mask. As you begin to understand these strategies, perception, fear, silence, and control, you will realize that Machiavelli's teachings are not just relevant to rulers or politicians. They are relevant to anyone who wants to understand how the world really works. Whether in business, in social situations, or in personal relationships, the ability to predict behavior, to shape perception, and to manipulate the narrative is the true source of power. But this is not a call to cynicism. This is a call to awareness. Once you see the strings behind the scenes, once you understand how the game is being played, you are no longer a passive participant. You can choose how to play the game, how to protect yourself from being used, and how to use these same strategies to shape your own destiny. Machiavelli's teachings were never about promoting cruelty, violence, or manipulation for its own sake. They were about understanding the mechanics of human behavior, understanding the forces that drive us, and learning how to navigate those forces to our advantage. Because at the end of the day, the most dangerous thing you can be in this world is unaware.